Today we are going to look at, there's 3 different functions within Power BI DAX of how to find averages, and they're all a little different. So to start, I'm going to show you the table that we are going to be using. It's going to be this orders table. This is all sample data. So we have a lot of price fields as fixed decimals. We have a couple text fields as well, and a whole number. And then we have an order ID, which is pretty much just text. So that's what we're using. And then I also will be using this measure called total sales. And it's just the sum of all of the sales in our orders table. So with that out of the way, let's start with the regular average function. I think this is the one that everyone feels most comfortable with. It's just finding the arithmetic mean of all the values. So we're going to create our new measure in the orders table, and we'll just call this average to make it easy. So we are going to use the average function, and it's just looking for a column name. So we are going to use sales in the orders table. So once we set that, I will throw it on a card to make it a little bit easier to see. And so we have the 1.3 thousand. It kept the same currency as the sales column initially was in a fixed decimal. So we have average. This works with all number fields. So a fixed decimal, whole number, a percentage, anything that's recognized as a number, you can just use the regular old average. Now, if we want to use AverageA, so we'll make a new measure, and we'll call this AverageA again, just to be easy. As we search, we'll find AverageA here. This one is going to be set up the exact same way as the regular average function, but instead of only being able to use numbers, this is going to be able to handle text, non-numeric values, so if you have true and false, really anything along those lines. Now, you're not going to find your average customer name or your something like that, right? You want to make sure that it's, you're finding the average of the count of true and false, or the average of something, right? Make sure that you're using it in a way that actually makes sense to find an average. For just to show you how this works today, we're going to use sales again, because what I always say is, if possible, always use AverageA, even if you have numbers, because let's say that you have order ID or something that Power Query recognizes as a number initially, and later you say, oh, I'd like that to be text actually. If you use AverageA all the time, even if you go through and change your data types, it won't mess up your measures. You can always use average and switch back and forth, but sometimes you might change a data type, not really think about it, and then later see that your measure doesn't work. So I think AverageA is a really good catch-all to use. Now, AverageX, I think, is really interesting. So AverageX, you can actually write expressions and you can use measures. So in our first AverageX example, we are going to use our measure. So we have AverageX here. This is set up a little bit differently. So we're going to look at our table first, the orders table. And then for our expression, we are just going to be using our total sales measure here. And once again, that is just the sum of all the sales. So right here, we'll see that, let me throw this on a card. That one seems very big. We're going to get the exact same thing. So if you have a more complex option, you've already created a measure and now you realize, I need to find the average, that's the easiest way to do it, instead of going through and creating a really long DAX expression of the average of an entire expression. Now you can use AverageX to do that as well, and I will show you that here. So we'll call this one AverageX2. And that is going to be AverageX. Once again, we're going to use the orders table. And for our expression, we're going to use orders, and we will say the quantity ordered new. times the order's unit price. And so we can create a whole expression here, which I think is really helpful because, usually you have to do average of orders quantity new, and then times, and then a new average of your unit price, right? Which just takes a long time. And sometimes you do get the wrong answer when you have them split up that way. So this one, we've actually got an even more explicit response here. But as you can see, it's still that 1.3K. So you can use these all interchangeably. As you can see with our sales column, we ended up getting the exact same thing. So instead of doing this where we put the expression within DAX, you can always create a separate measure, do order quantity new times unit price, and then use AverageA. You could go into Power Query and also create that. There are plenty of ways to find the average, but these are some options for you where you can feel confident you'll get the same response no matter what you choose.